segregation has been an issue for as long as America has been a country. Jim Crow laws created major issues for Black individuals in the late 19th century. For context, racism was already a prevalent issue seen between different races, but the Jim Crow laws, which encouraged the name-calling attitude towards African Americans, created even more problematic systematic racism. For instance, for African Americans, schools were unfunded. There was a lack of resources available to them, and they had limited access to opportunities due to their race. Plessy v. Ferguson was a ruling in 1896 that stated separate but equal. This doctrine would forever guarantee that Blacks would never be treated as equally as whites, contradicting itself. This is the story of the Little Rock Nine, a group of students who decided to push societal norms and not accept the unfair world that they were born into. 1957, an era that was crucial to American history, took place in Little Rock, Arkansas. The fight to end segregation between African American and white individuals in public education began to unfold, all thanks to the efforts of a group of colored students looking to change their future. The students you are looking at currently are the very same 9 courageous people who stood up for what they believe in. Their names will forever be written in history. Melba Patillo, Elizabeth Eckford, Jefferson Thomas, Ernest Green, Terrence Roberts, Carlotta Walls, Thelma Mothershed, Gloria Ray, and Minnie Jean Brown. These students were not your typical ones. They were real people with hopes, dreams, and unique stories. Melba had her sights set on a career in journalism, Elizabeth was driven to be the change she wanted to see, and Ernest was a leader who was consistent in his efforts to make the future better and turn his life into what he needed it to be. No matter their differences, one thing was for certain. All of these students were tired of the discrimination they faced, and so they decided to take action and call for change. Let's time travel to 1954. The Supreme Court had a case on its hands, which would come to be known as Brown v. Board of Education. This very decision stated that segregating 2 races in public schools went against the Constitution and was therefore unconstitutional. However, this did not yield the educational rights of the Black students. Instead, it made Southern schools avoid admitting these students due to racial controversy. Little Rock Central High, the high school that the 9 students went to, was one of the last schools to reject and ignore the ruling. In 1957, Orville Faubus, the governor of Arkansas at that time, had openly expressed his stance on how he was against the integration of the Little Rock Nine and demanded that the Arkansas National Guard prevent the students from entering the school under the excuse that this was all done on means of public safety. On September 4th of that same year, the 9 students had been blocked from entering the school premises by armed troops, an order made directly from the state itself. The amount of abuse these students had to go through was immeasurable. They had rocks thrown at them, spit spat on them, and even suffered physical abuse. However, it was so much more than just that. By the time everything had been said and done, they had loads of emotional trauma and mental health problems. They always feared seeking an education, were always isolated, and had to fear the loss of their own lives. Nonetheless, this did not stop them. Whenever they felt discouraged, they imagined the life that they could have with proper education. A good career, a well-structured family, and a successful future. It was difficult, but they needed to go through what they did to create a better future for the next generation, for their children and grandchildren. Gloria Ray later revealed how horrible her nights were. She would come home after a long day of fighting just to cry herself to sleep. She kept her faith that things would get better through it all. These individuals who were just simply trying to receive proper education had endured the worst situations imaginable. Civil rights leader Daisy Bates dedicated herself to advising these students on what to do to overcome their daily struggles stemming from their racial status, acting as a mentor towards them and an advocate for desegregation in Arkansas. She, the president of the Arkansas National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, played a crucial role in being one of the main people who supported the Little Rock Nine at a time when not many people did. Her tireless efforts to work with lawyers, the NAACP, and organizations were so much more than anyone would do for them at that given time. Bates received similar criticism and hate that the students had, but she was so committed to receiving justice for the students that none of that mattered. All that mattered to her was the courage and the fight for equal rights. Even though she was known as a mentor to the world, to them she was so much more than that. She was their safe place, the one person who was on their side. The 9 students would often meet at her place for comfort and regrouping. Newspapers such as the Arkansas State Press published numerous articles regarding the situation at Little Rock Central High School. Media outlets fixated on the students' courage and bravery, but more importantly, also uncovered the deeply rooted problems that cause division in societal American life due to this racial integration. The image of the students being prevented from entering school was more than just a photograph. It was a direct correlation of the unjust factors of American democracy. This urged leaders, such as the leaders of Ghana and India, to push and call on the United States to do something about the situation at hand. They believed that the country was not as constitutional as it had claimed to be. The ideals of freedom and equality were not shown to be evident when it came to race outside of whites. To civil rights groups and activists, and to anyone who wasn't white, these students were leaders of America. To societal standards regarding race, the Little Rock Nine were non-obedient, rule-breaking people. In Bates' words, the courage displayed by these children is a testament to their strength and to the undeniable truth that integration is the only way forward. It didn't matter how much hate they received and the criticism they faced. They continued to persevere through it all and put their best foot forward to get equal rights. President Dwight D. Eisenhower decided to get involved to find a solution to the issue. He sent 1,000 troopers to escort the students into the school, making sure they safely entered and that their rights were finally considered. This would be a pivotal moment in African American history. For the first time in forever, the government agencies were finally doing something positive to respect and uphold the rights of Black persons. The Little Rock Nine were testing the Constitution, rightfully so. These events were a punch in the face to anyone who believed in segregation and a major sign that racism would no longer be allowed. This would go down in history as a form of motivation and encouragement for people of color to yearn for and implement change. On September 25, 1957, the Little Rock Nine finally entered Little Rock Central High without complications. This marked the beginning of a new era, and they made history by being the first group of Black individuals to be enrolled in an all-white Southern public school. No matter the outcome, the series of unfortunate events these children had to deal with stuck with them. These students ended up having futures filled with prosperity and love because of their bravery. Yet still, they forever represented their fights for their rights and equality for desegregation. Their efforts were not to waste, as many generations after these nine would have role models to look up to whenever they wanted to change. They changed history for the better. Melba, one of the students from the Little Rock Nine, shared some of her experiences in the fight for equal rights. I was pushed, shoved, and spat on, but I had a mission, to be there, for all of us. Let's go back to present-day time. Melba and her classmates often think back and reflect on what happened during their teenage years. They went through a great deal of emotional distress, but they also stood their ground in the face of racism driven by all the hate in the world. They set the standard for civil rights movements. Martin Luther King, one of the most recognized civil rights activists, would often refer to the Little Rock Nine when referencing courage, determination, and strength. They were the very reason that the fight for civil rights was widely supported and successful. In 1958, Ernest Green made history yet again by becoming the first African American graduate from Little Rock Central High. He was a major standing symbol of the strength of the Little Rock Nine. He and the other 8 individuals paved the way for many other parties to get involved and encourage change. Today, the Little Rock Nine's journey is preserved and remembered in the National Museum of African American History and Culture, a forever reminder of the struggles needed to receive equal and fair rights in education. Little Rock Central High stands tall as a historical monument. It displays the dedication of these 9 individuals who risked everything they had to receive the education they deserved. It is looked at as a story in our history that bettered public education for colored people, and not just whites for once. The actions taken by the Little Rock Nine made education more exclusive and added fuel to the fire of the civil rights movement, forcing change to happen. Their legacy is a reminder that students, no matter how small, can make a real difference as long as they stand together through difficult times. Students of today can look at these former students and rest assured that change is possible and that they can influence a new story. The fight for change and equality is everlasting and shall continue. However, thanks to the Little Rock Nine, the students of today have a real and amazing example and opportunity to freely express their thoughts and rights and urge for changes, no matter the circumstances.